Can the Phoenix Suns and new owner Matt Ishbia resist the temptation to go get a third star? On today's episode of Locked On Suns, the names are already flying. We'll break them down. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And I am your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen. Today on this Tuesday, as the coaching search continues and the offseason keeps going along, if you've not already, hit follow or subscribe. I will be here with you every single day of this offseason in what is sure to be pretty darn crazy. What we thought last offseason was going to be, only with a new owner with bigger, pockets and more drama sure to come. So that's your thing. If you like to indulge in the craziness of the offseason, I'll be here for you. Hit follow, hit subscribe wherever you're finding the show, including YouTube, where you can drop a comment with all your thoughts on the latest Suns news. We're going to dive in first to the third good player, third great player versus filling out the depth and the rotation and the role player conversation to start. Starting with Kyrie Irving and James Harden, who are already out there in the rumor mill. Want to let everybody know today's show, though, is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. That's last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. More from Gametime later on. So we've already heard James Harden from a reporter with, I believe, SiriusXM NBA, a guy based in New Jersey. Maybe there's a Brooklyn connection. Maybe there's a Philly familiarity. I couldn't tell you. That is out there that apparently a team on Harden's radar is the Suns. It is absolutely that time of year. It is May in the NBA. That rumor confirms it, like the groundhog looking at his shadow. It is officially the offseason when you start to get silliness like that. I'm not saying it's silly as in ridiculous, but random reporter you've never heard of from an outlet you can't remember talking about something that you may or may not believe. That is the 1 + 1 + 1 = 3 of the NBA offseason. And then Kyrie Irving's been out there since the NBA trade deadline, which gives us the bottom line question of, do you pursue a third star or not? So let me go on both sides of the case. Let me play lawyer a little bit on both sides of this as we walk through it. And you'll probably get where my vote would lie as I talk through this. But let's go. First of all, the fact that these two are the first names to come up tells us plenty. Right? The Suns don't have the goods to trade for an actual superstar after the Kevin Durant deal. Like a bona fide, if Joel Embiid or even Karl Anthony Towns or even Damian Lillard, who's older than those guys and makes a lot more money. Even if he became available, it's very unlikely the Suns have any of the juice to pull off anything like that. They gave up just about every asset available to them in the Kevin Durant trade. Talked about that plenty of times. I think that was the right move. I think Kevin Durant is substantially better than most of those players outside of perhaps Joel Embiid, but that is a complete pipe dream in the short term. We have no idea if he'll even be available, and you don't plan on, well, maybe that guy. No, you get the trade done when you need to get it done, but that leaves you with a lot less ammo to go do anything else, and that's where the Suns are now. So the fact that it's a coming off a disappointing playoff run, James Harden, it is a, perpetually searching for a new team, Kyrie Irving, that sort of tells you what you need to know. 3-star teams in general, though, whether it's Harden or Kyrie or somebody else in that caliber, they work when all of the guys are young and healthy. Less so when you have Kevin Durant on your team who hasn't played more than 60 games since he was a Warrior, right? Like, that is pretty important to me as I'm thinking about this. The 3-star thing, whether it's the Heat, whether it's the Warriors, and even then it was really a 2-star team with 2 incredibly high-level role players, and then honestly, beneath that, even a good deal more of, cheap veterans with Livingston and Iguodala and West. That team doesn't even really feel like it fits that to me. The Nets were like that. We saw what happened when some of those guys got hurt. And then obviously, once again, the Heat were like that. They all were able to stay healthy for the most part. And then once Wade started to decline, well, LeBron bailed, right? Because it's just not possible to have depth when you have the trade assets you need to send out and the salary limitations that you have with 3 massive salaries on your books make it very hard to get a good 4th player, 5th player, 6th player. You're really left with minimum guys, old players, etc. That is a tough spot to be in. For me, though, from the Suns' standpoint, their problem, it's hard to boil it down to one thing, of course, but for the most part, I would say, their 3rd and 4th most highly paid players, or even 2nd in the case of Chris Paul at times, have not done enough to justify their spot on that cap sheet in these playoff series, whether it is Chris Paul being hurt, Chris Paul playing poorly, Mikal Bridges at the end of the finals run, not necessarily contributing offensively. He didn't make a ton of money at that time. He does now. DeAndre Ayton this year. These are the things that have hamstrung them more so than, Devin Booker playing poorly or not having enough depth, I would say, right? And I would say the other part is the depth hasn't developed over the course of the season to step up in their place. And that's somewhat of the reason Monty is now gone. That's a whole bunch of things are to blame there. But regardless, a 3-star team makes that problem even greater. One, if any of those highly paid players were to underperform or again be hurt, you're extra screwed because there's even less depth behind that. And when you have so much star power, those guys are going to soak up the oxygen. They're going to be the ones to have the ball in their hands, to take shots, do mostly everything for your offense especially. And that means that if and when they do get hurt or are subpar for some reason, there's not enough behind them to make up for that, not just because there's not enough assets and resources to get those guys, but also nobody's been playing that role for the whole course of the season, right? I mean, imagine telling Bruce Brown back when he was on those Brooklyn 3-star teams, hey, can you just do what Kyrie had been doing for us? No, I mean, 1, he's not that type of player. 2, the guy's been playing 15 minutes as a hustle guy. Now you're saying put the ball in his hands? That's not going to happen at the snap of your fingers. So to me, that sort of would exacerbate one of the Suns' core problems that's already there. You also, from a cap and roster building standpoint, star versus depth, you run the risk of solidifying even more of your assets into a smaller number of players if you go and get additional stars. To me, and we'll talk about Ayton to close out the show today, you need to break Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton into multiple pieces, if possible, to prolong sort of the lifespan of your assets, right? The worst thing you can do is to have so much of your assets, your salary, everything bottled up in a few players. That's exactly what happened with the Brooklyn Nets, right? And then really the only course of action at a certain point when you saw, well, Harden only fetched us a broken Ben Simmons. Kyrie only fetched us Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie and a pick. At that point, Kevin Durant, you have to trade him if you're the Brooklyn Nets, right? Because what are you going to do with Ben Simmons, a couple extra draft picks, and Dorian Finney-Smith in order to help Kevin Durant win a championship? The answer is not much, right? Moving forward on that from a Suns-specific standpoint, sign and trades are going to be the only way that the Suns could get anybody like this. Anyone who is basically set to be a free agent. Now, Harden has a player option. There's some potentials there. I don't know how likely this is. But sign and trade is going to be the only way to do that because they obviously don't have any cap space. But a move where you sign and trade if you are already over the cap, that hard caps you, which means that you, for just the current year that you make that trade, you can't go over a certain amount. And the Suns almost, it would be impossible almost as things currently stand. It would take a lot of doing to even get under that hard cap with the trade. Like, it almost might not even be legal to make that trade as far as I understand. So that's a limiting factor. There's the new second apron under the new CBA. The Suns would put themselves in jeopardy of that if you add any additional salary beyond what they already have. And so with all that said, to me, the reasons not to go after a player like this outweigh the benefits. Still, though, we know aggressiveness, improvement, those are going to be the name of the game for Matt Ishbia as the new Suns owner. So we could be in for a lot of rumors like this and potentially a deal like this anyway, because it might be the more sound thing to try to get a nice player at the taxpayer mid-level, trade Chris Paul for a couple of role players, see what you can do. Might be the right thing in theory. It's hard when you are a aggressive new owner to say, yeah, let's trade Chris Paul to the Pistons for Corey Joseph and Kelly Olynyk, and then that'll make our team deeper. Guys, rally the troops. That's our plan. No. I did a quick Twitter poll on this. 66 votes. 35 people said neither Harden or Kyrie. 7 people said Kyrie, and 20 people said Harden. The rest of the people were just jokesters who didn't give me an answer. I think that speaks for itself. I vote neither. I vote depth. I hope that's what we see the Suns do. Let's move on to the coaching update. John Gambadoro ruled out 2 candidates, leaving maybe just one. We'll go through those names next. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by Gametime, the official ticketing partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Going to San Diego in June with family. Also, the San Diego Padres coming to Arizona in August. I am a Padres fan since last year, lifelong since last year, as you know. Gametime's the place I'm looking. They help you get tickets right up to the day of the event with exclusive flash deals for football, basketball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section and row, Gametime will credit you 110% of that difference to make it up to you. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. You can even get images of your seat before you buy your tickets. That's my favorite thing about Gametime, is that they have photos of your view, of what the view will be of the seat you're buying before you actually commit to buying it. A lot of websites have it out there, but you're switching. You're trying to look through these grainy pictures some rando put on the internet for you, and you're having to trust that over whatever. In Gametime, it's right there in the same spot. Right before you hit purchase, you can have that assurance that you're going to be in for a good experience at the event. Download the Gametime app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Alrighty, we are back here. Let's talk coaching as the Suns coaching search continues. Less than a week in, obviously, but John Gambadoro over at Arizona Sports reported that he does not expect the Suns to pursue either Nick Nurse or Mike Budenholzer. I'm more surprised to hear one of those than the other. I think Mike Budenholzer would have been a lateral move at best, and I don't even mean that disrespectfully. I guess I just say that to say, one, it's the guy who beat you in the finals. It's a guy who also just got fired after a disappointing playoff exit. The optics of bringing him in would have been a little bit strange to me, just for that. I also say that about Budenholzer to indicate the baseline for what you need to get if you're replacing Monty Williams is pretty high. And I feel like I haven't said that enough as I've been talking through some of this the past couple of episodes, which I recommend you go back and listen to for my more in-depth thoughts about Monty, as the everydayers have already heard. But I think that, Monty was a top 15, top 10 coach in this league. If you're replacing him, you need to get a top 15 or top 10 coach in this league. I don't know if I necessarily think you have to get a better coach. I do think that there's some times where, on the whole, better is hard to measure. If you get somebody who works better for a Durant Booker team versus a guy who, in Monty, seemed to be better for a Chris Paul Devin Booker team, I think there's different ways to look at things. I'm not saying you have to get a top 3 coach or this is all a failure, but I don't think Budenholzer was enough of a step in the right direction where you would have felt like that was a huge victory. On the other hand, Nick Nurse is a surprise. It is a genuine surprise to me to hear that they are not going to pursue Nick Nurse. I personally would have been okay with Nurse. I think that he checks some of the boxes that I listed off. I don't think his offense is particularly imaginative, but we've seen him be able to get the most out of a team featuring a superstar, which was Kawhi Leonard. We've seen him be creative and innovative in the playoffs, which is one of the things that the Suns ideally are looking for. I don't think he's necessarily a huge upgrade over Monty, but I could have seen the idea there. So it's surprising. But we once again heard from Shams Charania today this idea that the Suns will continue to go after mostly proven championship coaches. Championship is a little bit vague, right? Does that mean somebody would have had to have won a championship? How recent? Or just somebody who maybe has a proven track record but doesn't actually have a ring? It's all semantic. It's all leak insider stuff that's hard to read. But if you're looking at guys who have won a championship, a lot of them are, unfortunately for them, out of jobs right now. Nick Nurse, Budenholzer, who we just mentioned. I still could, I suppose, see Frank Vogel be a candidate here. I don't love that personally, but he checks that box. Doc Rivers, we don't know what his fate will be in Philadelphia. His championship was quite a long time ago at this point, but we have seen him time and again coach superstar players and at least get them to the postseason. His playoff track record continues to add up against him, so I don't know if I would vote for Doc, but he's still there. Otherwise, it feels like the Suns are going full steam ahead at Ty Lue. Because I just told you why I don't like Vogel or Rivers. We've talked about Kenny Atkinson is not a championship coach as a head coach, but he has been on this Warriors bench and had that proximity, and he's been on a lot of other assistant benches, has the track record of having been a head coach before, but he's not going to coach Kevin Durant. Again, I wouldn't think. Steve Nash obviously never won a championship. He just got fired from Kevin Durant team less than a year ago. That doesn't seem likely. All these guys who have the pedigree and everything else, they don't really seem like they're candidates here. Seems like it's Ty Lue. I would hope that the Suns knew that Ty Lue might actually be interested and available in this with this job before they fired Monty. That is TBD, but let's just explore the Lue thing for a moment here. I'm not going to get too deep on the fit of him versus other guys until we even frankly know if he's available, but I want to go through coach trades. All right, because that's what we would be looking at here. And I don't think that's getting talked about a lot. It's sort of this idea of like there would probably have to be some compensation, but let me tell you what the compensation has looked like. This is the list that I could find online, and it looked right to me. There might have been one or two that this doesn't include. I'm not sure, but I believe coach trades began in 1992 with Mike Dunleavy Sr. to the Milwaukee Bucks for 2 second-round picks. 1995 was Pat Riley to Miami, which everyone remembers, for 1 first-round pick. It's basically 1 first or 2 seconds. That's been every deal that's happened. Stan Van Gundy from Miami to Orlando in 2008, 2 seconds. Doc in 2013 to the Clippers for a first-round pick. And then 2014, Jason Kidd from the Nets, right, to the Bucks for 2 second-round picks. That was bonkers. I don't really understand. Kidd had not done much with the Nets at that time, and the Bucks, I don't know what reason they had to think that, whatever. This is not a Bucks or a Nets podcast, but that one did, remembering that trade did throw me for a loop a little bit. But that's what the Suns would be looking at. So just like we were talking about with star trades, their Kevin Durant deal might actually limit them from pulling something off here with Ty Lue. I don't know. I don't think it's really it's super important what the picks are. I don't imagine that a lot of the good teams who are trying to go from good to great, or even great teams who are just trying to get over the hump to win a championship, are necessarily trading really high draft picks, you know? The pick that the Clippers gave up for Doc, for instance, I can't imagine was like a top 10 pick or anything, but the Suns don't frankly have any picks. They don't have any first-round picks. Ty Lue is a very good coach. The Clippers probably would, understand that since there's already seeming to be some teams lining up for them, that they have some leverage here. I would imagine they ask for a first, but even if the Suns could convince them to get to take 2 seconds, the Suns' second-round pick this year is 52. their seconds are going to be bad. I mean, when there's a will, there's a way, right? If Ty Lue makes it known to the Clippers front office, I'm done here. I would like to go to Phoenix. Please allow me to get it done. It is in the Clippers' best interest at that point to just go ahead and do whatever it takes. And they will understand the Suns don't exactly have a lot to offer. Maybe it's just, we'll take your 2 measly seconds and go about our business and find a coach who does want to be here. Let's go hire Sam Cassell back or promote Dan Craig, who I talked about on Saturday's show. Whatever. I think it could get done if it was going to get done. The point is, if there becomes a bidding war with maybe Milwaukee or Philadelphia for all we know, Ty Lue replacing Doc twice would be a little harsh, but crazier things have happened. The Suns might not have the goods to match up in a bidding war like that. I don't know. It seems like they are backing themselves into a corner where unless there is a candidate that we are just not thinking of at all who is going to come out in the coming days, or they already have somebody in mind that hasn't leaked because it's basically being wrapped up, I don't know. Brandon Duenas on Monday's show, my co-host on Mondays, brought up a college guy, maybe Tom Izzo with the Michigan State stuff. That feels crazy to me. I mean, Tom Izzo in his late 60s or whatever he is, coming to the NBA finally after all this time to coach Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who he doesn't seem to have any relationship with, would be bizarre. But this thing is tricking me, man. I really don't know. I mean, we have not heard a lot of interviews or candidates yet, so it's all a little bit conjecture. But just to have Gambo right off the top say, 2 of the guys that you thought might be the coach, nope. It's leaving me pretty confused. And with the Lue situation so uncertain, there's not an obvious answer right now. I want to talk about Deandre Ayton to close the show, because I think that now that Monty is gone, what the Suns do with Deandre Ayton is the most interesting storyline of the postseason, and I think it genuinely could go either way. Keep him and hope that after Monty Williams is gone, maybe we see a different side of Ayton, a rejuvenated Ayton. On the other hand, you could easily make the case that that situation has run its course even with Monty gone. I'll tell you what I think next. First, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks came in. They fixed daily fantasy sports. They cut out the pools and the day-to-day leagues and everything else, and they just have it you versus their Prize Picks player projections. You just go more or less than those projections. Set your lineup. You can go cross-sport. You can go all in the same sport, whatever you want, all on Prize Picks. And through the NBA playoffs, into the finals, and through the finals, Prize Picks is picking one person per day with the chance to win $1 million. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern will be randomly selected each day. If you are selected, you get an opportunity to fill out another 6-pick flex, and if you get all of those correct, you get $1 million. If you get 5 correct, $80,000, 4 correct, $16,000. Full details are available at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at that link to be eligible. Again, place an entry after 8 a.m. after you opt in, and you could be selected to fill out that 6-pick flex for the chance at $1 million. In the meantime, download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code LOCKEDON for an instant deposit match up to $100. Promo code LOCKEDON at sign up at prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app to sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Closing out the show, let's talk about Deandre Ayton. I've been thinking a lot about Ayton. Wow. I mean, for the past 6 years, no, I'm not gonna go quite that far back. But he didn't play Game 6. He was not his best in this series, not his best in these playoffs. After 2023, now the postseason being over for Phoenix, we can look back and say his scoring high was 21 points. His rebounding high was 13. He never shot better than, he had a 170% game and 164% game from the field. Never took more than 18 shots in a game. You just didn't feel his impact, I think it's fair to say. But you've also heard a lot since Monty was fired, and even before that, as we thought he maybe might be fired, from Gambo and others, lots of others, Tim McMahon, I believe Jake Fisher had something on this, that there has been a not so tightly kept secret that these guys just don't get along. right? And we felt and heard some of that around media day last fall with these Suns. And you could read between the lines when the Suns, this idea of Monty not being at the signing of Ayton's contract. It's like, well, that was right there for us. The evidence was staring us in the face, Monty didn't come to, he wasn't in the pictures. That might sound stupid, but like it was right there. It wasn't exactly like we needed Tim McMahon to tell us that there's some tension here. At the same time, well, let me actually, before I do the at the same time, I have also heard, not from anybody directly in the situation, but some similar things about how tense stuff was around training camp between those two in particular, and the way that it had an effect on others in that situation and just became uncomfortable at times. I don't have anything harder and faster than that to share publicly, but I will just say that a lot of what you've been hearing, I at least have heard kernels of that as well. So I'm not just spouting out other people's thoughts and words here. I'm speaking from information. At the same time, we'll do that pivot now. I'm on Deandre Ayton's game log, playoff game log over the course of his career over on Basketball Reference. His first 3 playoff games, 21-16 against the Lakers in 2021, 22-10, 22-11, 14-17 was his 4th playoff game. All of those, he had at least 2 offensive rebounds and obviously scored in double digits. You fast forward to the conference finals in that season. I think one of his better games ever was game 4 of that series, where the score was in the 80s and Ayton got 22 rebounds, including 9 offensive, and scored 19 points, had 4 blocks, just really owned the paint in a game that was very old-fashioned, just slugfest in the paint primarily. A lot of missed shots and who's going to clean up the garbage the best, and the Suns beat the more experienced Clippers at that game. We also had a 24-14 game and a 16-17 game in those conference finals from Ayton. You might forget, too, dude also had 22-19 and a 20-10 in the finals. He had a 17-rebound game, including that 19-rebound game in the finals. This man was a rebounding machine, a double-double machine, aggressive, energetic, all throughout the entirety of that playoff run, and had that series against Denver where he guarded Jokic pretty well. Fast forward to 2022, and I continue to think that the best game of Deandre Ayton's entire career was Game 3 against the Pelicans. 28 points, 17 rebounds. He made a 3 in that game. He was busting out spin moves on Valanciunas, hook shots, mid-rangers, everything. That guy looked like the athletic ballerina big man that we all thought he could be at U of A. If you had asked me April 22nd of 2022, does Deandre Ayton end up, an all-star next season? Does he get maxed out? I would have said yes to all of it. I would have said yes to every single bit of it, because with Devin Booker out and not a lot of offensive options elsewhere, Ayton stepped up against a big man in Valanciunas who is not an athlete, but is exactly the type of player that has given Ayton problems throughout his career. We know what happened by the end of the Dallas series. In Game 7, he puts up 5 points and 4 rebounds. He also had a 9-3 game. That wasn't a win, I will admit. But he wasn't actually as bad overall in the Dallas series as maybe your memory suggests. He scored 20-plus points in 3 of those games, including the Game 6 blowout loss. I know you might, he scored in a loss. Congratulations, but whatever. That's still 20 points. I'm sure a lot of the other guys did not score 20 in that game. And then you get to this year, and I listed off what he did. So now that I'm done reading box scores to you, it's just a little bit of a trip down memory lane, listing off the impact that this guy has had at times, even with a coach who, at least in the finals in 2021 and in the 2022 playoff run, we know now just didn't get along with his head coach. He still has talent. I will say, minute 29, whoever the everydayers who are still here with me, I don't think Deandre Ayton will ever be, what his nickname, self-given nickname suggests that he will be. Maybe that's an asinine thing for me to say. Maybe, all 5'7", 5'8" of me on my couch being a 26-year-old who thinks he knows everything is just a moron for saying something about a person who is still growing as a player and as a person himself, that he's not going to become X, Y, or Z. I could easily be proven wrong. What I will say, maybe a better way to put it is, I'm done counting on that. Yet I'm still sitting here debating back and forth between the idea of letting one more season play out with a different coach just to see what happens with a guy who has flashed enormous talent at various points. Do I think he's ever going to be a 25-12 guy? Do I ever think he's even necessarily going to be an all-star? Maybe not. But you have to be pretty comfortable that he's not getting any better and he's maybe a finished product, and that some of the failures by the end of these playoff runs are legit to just bail. I'm not ready to say you just bail, period. I'm not at the point of now that Monty is gone and there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel for this guy and there's a little bit more of a potential to try one more time to see what he can be, I'm inclined to at least consider trying one more season. What I would not do is hang up the phone on trade calls. What I would also not do is pull the trigger on a bad trade just to get rid of him, right? I think you have to find a good trade. You have to get 2 good rotation players. That would be the bare minimum to me. Maybe they're not already good rotation players, but I don't know, you think of Dallas. Could you get Tim Hardaway Jr. and Maxi Kleba? I don't know. Something like that. I don't really want Christian Wood anywhere near a team trying to win a championship until further notice. But that type of a trade. If you could do that, okay, I think you just do it. But if you don't feel like you're great on the trade situation and you're unsure about the future, I think he has something else to show. That might just be on another team, but I wouldn't hurry that process along unless I had to. Parting thoughts here. You also might you also might get an even lower trade return next summer. He's young, but he's not super young. He's not cheap anymore in terms of his contract. So you could also sell another team on that same exact idea. Well, he's going to go in your environment. He didn't have the best relationship with this coach. He didn't have a lot of opportunities. How about you go get him? We saw last summer, there weren't a lot of teams in a hurry to give him a free agent contract, but trades are a little different because you can get rid of something you don't want. You also don't have to have cap space, so that expands the number of teams. This will be the most interesting thing going forward for this Suns team, and I don't think it's an easy, straightforward answer if I'm the team trying to trade for him or if I'm the Suns deciding whether to trade for him. Time will tell. We'll start to hear rumors on this stuff. Of course, as the days go by, we'll keep talking about it as the days go by. Hit follow or subscribe, though, guys. Get this show in your feed. Get the Ayton Talk as the days go by every day in your favorite podcast platform. That'll wrap us up, though. Hit Locked On NBA. They're keeping up with the playoffs and the beginning of the offseason over on that show each and every day to get you locked on to the association on this same network. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.